What if your greatest lessons don't come from a boardroom, a promotion, or a title? But what if it comes from experiences of life itself? What if leadership is not something you master once and for all, but something you continually refine through challenges and transitions and setbacks and victories and reinvention? Well, listen, today's conversation is all about leading through every season of life. I can't wait to go into this conversation. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to Transformation Station Leadership Podcast, where we explore leadership principles, personal growth, and transformational conversations that help leaders like you and me to thrive personally and professionally. I'm your host, Adrienne Benton, and today we're talking about a topic that every leader can relate to. We're talking about leadership at the speed of life. Listen, it's really true that life does not slow down so we can lead. In fact, leadership often happens in the middle of a busy schedule and changing priorities and unexpected challenges and personal transitions. And today we have an amazing guest with us who is going to share real life stories that will help us to understand how we can, as leaders, still move forward at the speed of life. But before you meet him, I want to remind you of a few things. Number one, listen. A greater force than failure, intentional time with God is a journal that's missing from your bookshelf. If you've ever made a mistake, if you have ever found yourself asking the question, how can I move forward from this thing that just happened? This is for you. A greater force than failure takes you through 4 intentional steps to reframe, renew your life so that you can move forward living life on purpose. You can grab your copy of the journal from Amazon.com. You can get the paperback version or the Kindle version. And be sure to not just get this for yourself, but be sure to gift it to 2 or 3 other leaders in your community. I also want to remind you that every week on Monday and Wednesdays, we have a new episode of Transformation Station Leadership Podcast. If you missed this episode, champions, don't panic. You know what that means. It means you need to go back and catch the replay. And again, I want to invite you whenever you engage with Mobilizing with Impact or Transformation Station, you never want to keep all this goodness to yourself because we believe that the community that learns together grows together. Well, I am very thrilled and excited to tell you about our amazing guest today. His name is Ed. Ed Doherty, a Massachusetts native who has lived and worked all over the United States in his roles as a restaurant executive and leadership development expert and volunteer, has completed his book, Observations at the Speed of Life, a compelling memoir comprised of short stories from throughout his life, documenting his struggles, his triumphs, and various life lessons learned along the way as he managed to find his place in the world with friends and family by his side. It is my great honor today to welcome to Transformation Station, Ed. We're so glad you're with us today. Welcome.
Well, it's great to be here. And if I should have had you do the introduction to the book, as that was better than I wrote. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. We're so glad you're here. So listen, as I was getting ready for this episode, I was thinking to myself that, many times when we think about leadership, we think about leadership from the perspective of managing people, managing projects, or managing an organization. But I know for many of us who have been in leadership at least over 2 decades, we learn that life teaches us something different, takes us deeper. Leadership is really about managing ourselves, our priorities, our perspectives, and our responses. So I want to start off by asking you this question. What does leadership at the speed of life mean to you? And why is it such an important concept for leaders today?
Well, I think in a short answer would be leadership at the speed of life is paying attention.
Mm.
Because as you said, a boardroom or a retreat or a strategic plan, those are big, those are megaphones. This is a leadership opportunity. But every leader has hundreds of opportunities every day to notice a discouraged person or a customer who has unmet needs or something else that could require influence. And my experience is those are things that people don't pay attention to or don't realize the impact of influencing what happens. You know, my model is observe, act, and stay with it. You know, and I didn't realize it till I finished the book, but I guess that was my entire life. You know, years ago, my late mother, when she was in her 90s, pointed a finger at me and said, "You lead a very interesting life, and it's all your fault." And it really resonated. You know, whose job is it to make our job, our life interesting? Is it someone else's or is it ours? And the way to do that is to pay attention to what's going on around you.
Pay attention. So here in Transformation Station, we always invite our leaders to stop and think about exactly what they're hearing and what's resonating. So leaders, what's resonating with you and what Ed just shared? And I love what you just said in terms of it's important for us to stop. There's something about that pause that gives us an opportunity to really understand what's important, what needs to be done, and how to respond to life and not react. And leaders, we want to remind you that it's so important that we stay flexible and that we maintain a perspective that gives us life. And how we can do that, a best practice, treat every life experience as a leadership lesson rather than an interruption. All right. So Ed, you know, I'm thinking this question now. How can we as leaders remain grounded when life feels overwhelming or unpredictable?
The only reason life feels overwhelming or unpredictable is that you're trying to control everything.
Mercy.
You can't control everything. You can influence some things. And going back to my model, what are you seeing? What am I seeing? And like, what is the next right step? And I like to focus on facts, not fear. And that's not as easy as it sounds. But if you stop and think about it, calm creates confidence. And it creates confidence in others as well as yourself. When you panic, you make it worse.
The place, yeah.
So I had an experience that I hope no one ever has. I was on a highway in New Hampshire, and there was a crash in front of me. A woman veered across 3 lanes, hit the center median. The car was smoking, and I had to decide whether to keep driving or stop. And I realized it was my number that was called. I was the best first person to be there. So I pulled over, and trust me, I wasn't totally calm, but I was trying to be calm. And I went to the car, and the engine was smoking white or black, and the airbag was smoking white, and there was a single woman inside, and I tried to open the door, and it wouldn't open.
Mercy.
Oh no. And 2 other people stopped, but they were older than me, and they were just observers. So I tried it again, and it still wouldn't open. I tried it the 3rd time, and then I said, this thing is gonna open. I opened it up. I finally got it open. I got her out, and I said, thank goodness I was able to get you out. And she turned to me and she said, thank goodness my kids weren't in the car. So I went to my car. I got a bottle of water because I didn't know what else to do. There were no police there, and I gave her the water, and I said, well, if she can open it herself, she's probably okay. So I didn't crack the top. I gave it to her. She opened it. We talked a little bit. She calmed down. The other people said they had called the police. And so I went back and I sat in my car. I took a couple of deep breaths, and then I just took off. My number was called, and I can't tell you how happy I am about myself that I stopped.
Yeah. And you know what I hear you saying through that story there is you remain connected to your values, right? Your values is what caused you to stop and to get out the car and to provide assistance. And leaders, it's so important that we remain connected to our values, our priorities, and our purpose, even when circumstances are stressful, pressure-filled, or circumstances change. Why? Because here's a leadership principle. Our inner stability creates external influence. If we are unstable on the inside, it is very difficult to be stable externally, right?
And people pick up on that too. People know when absolutely.
No, please continue. What were you saying there?
Well, one of the things that if we talk about observations and leadership, you can lead yourself or you can lead others. Very few people lead others effectively if they can't lead themselves.
Right. That's right.
One of the things that I am proudest of in my whole life, it's goofy, but I'm proud, is I was an intercollegiate soccer player for the University of Massachusetts on a nationally ranked team. Now, I want to tell you how I got there. I got there because I was cut from the 13-year-old junior high team. And I looked at the bulletin board and my name didn't appear on it. And I walked home crying the whole time. And then I decided, well, sometimes people get sent down to the minors for more practice. And I was going to try out again when I was in the 8th grade. And so by the time I got home, my tears were dry. It was the day before a vacation. And I came back and my first class after vacation was with Mr. Cawley, the art teacher, who cut me from the team.
Mercy.
So I walked into the class, and to this day, I don't know why I said it. I said, "Hi, Mr. Cawley, how is the team doing?" And he mumbled something. And then when the bell rang, he said, "Ed, could you stop by the desk on your way out?" I said, "Okay." He said, "Ed, one of our catchers can't continue. I was wondering if you would reconsider joining the team."
Wow.
Well, I had a different kind of tear in my eye, if you know what I'm saying. So I was a catcher. I was small. I couldn't reach second base on the fly. And that season, I went to every practice. I was the first one there. The runt story, that I played 2/3 of an inning that year in left field. But the following year, not only did I make the team, I was the captain.
Wow.
And the following year, I made the 9th grade big team. And then I got sick and I couldn't play baseball because I missed the whole season. So I decided to focus on hockey. And I was on the junior varsity of a team that went 0-18. But by the time I was a senior, I had made the all-star team and played with and against a bunch of players who played in the National Hockey League. And that was going to be my career until I flunked the eye physical at the University of Massachusetts. And the doctor said, "We won't let you play hockey. You'll hurt other people." So I focused on soccer, and I eventually became the co-captain of a nationally ranked team. And none of that, I don't think, would have happened if I hadn't said, "Mr. Cawley, how's the team coming along?" And that story's in the book is called "When the Crying Stops," because that's when things happen. When the crying stops is when action takes over.
Leaders, I know you're listening, and so I'm going to invite you even right now to go ahead in the comment and respond back to Ed. We all understand, right? We have many tears. Sometimes our tears don't necessarily flow outside externally, but we're crying on the inside as we're journeying through leadership. And Ed reminded us that, we're able to grow, we're able to learn, we're able to move forward when the crying stops. That was really powerful right there. We're able to see the opportunities in front of us. So that leads me to this next question, Ed. What role does resilience, right? Because you exercise resilience through each occurrence and evolution and season to go from one to the next, right? So what role does resilience play in leading through life's challenges and transitions?
Well, I like to use the word persistence because resilience is kind of toughness, and I'm not sure if I'm tough, but I am persistent. Stop and think about it. Setbacks are part of the journey. I've had some terrible jobs, some terrible experiences, but long term, they benefited me because I learned things I wouldn't have learned had it been smooth sailing. I think adversity builds leaders, and growth comes when there's changes, when there's curveballs, when there isn't a script to follow and you have to figure out what to do because of the pressure. One of the stories in the book, I've been married 52 years now. And one of the stories in the book is about my first date with my future wife. It's called 2 50-year-old cocktail napkins. And I was trying to impress her, and there was a new bar at the top of the campus. And I said, let's go up there and have a drink. She said, well, I'm not 21. I can't do that. And I said, I'll take care of it. And so I went upstairs, and the server was in my English class. And I said, look, I'm trying to impress this girl. Can you serve her a drink? And she said, well, I might lose my job. I said, well, I'll get you another job if that happens. She said, put it in writing. So I took a cocktail napkin and I said, I will get you a job if you lose it. And then she says, what if I get fined? I said, on another day, I will pay your fine. So my wife came up. She was served a drink. I borrowed a friend's VW Bug and went to this romantic restaurant 10 miles from campus, up in the hills. And when we got there, there was nothing there. I'm on a first date in the middle of the woods in a Volkswagen Bug.
Have mercy.
We turned around and went to McDonald's. We found out 15 years later the restaurant had burned down.
Oh my goodness.
But we still go to McDonald's every year on the anniversary of our first date.
I love that. 1000%. Leaders, go ahead and put a 1 in the chat right now. A 1 in the chat in the comment section showing Ed that you are enjoying this teaching that he's giving us. Very practical and relevant. And leaders, we want to ask you, what role does resilience play for you as you are moving through your challenges and transitions? Please go ahead and share in the chat because we want to learn from each other. So Ed, I know that there are listeners and viewers, leaders that are listening and watching us, and they're saying, okay, so balance. How can we as leaders balance ambition and achievement without sacrificing what matters most?
Get old. That's the easiest way to do that. Because when you're young, you're ambitious and achievement is everything and get out of my way. And then when you're older, you realize that success means more than titles and relationships matter most. And people remember how you treated them.
Yes.
I'm a consultant now. And 30 years ago, I mentored a young man who eventually became the president and CEO of an 800 employee organization. Guess who we hired as a consultant? So, it always comes around. I think that as a priority, go back to what you said about values. I think that if you have your values squared away, a lot of decisions become easier. And I don't think anybody has balanced work and life without saying, I'm going to balance work and life. That's a goal.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, as you're talking, what I'm thinking is, achievement is important, but not at the expense of our health, not at the expense of our relationships, not at the expense of our purpose. I unfortunately know of coworkers who they put everything into their career, like everything, heart, mind, body, soul, and neglected themselves, neglect their families. And I know of 1 or 2 people who, when they retired, shortly after retiring, they had a heart attack, they had a stroke. I don't know if you've heard the book called The Body Keeps the Score. It was almost as if their body said, okay, we don't have to run right now. Woo. And all of a sudden to them, they said it felt like they were walking through a season of all of a sudden, all of these ailments and all these things just began to manifest,
Yeah.
And, as you were talking, I'm like, leaders is really important. Yes, you want to climb the ladder. Yes, you want to promote, definitely, your gifts will make room for you, but you don't want to do it at the detriment. You have to ask yourself, what is the cost, right? Because you're going to get fired, they're going to let you go, or you will leave. When any of those things happen, what you have left is what's really important in your life. So we invite you to balance. Yeah.
I would also add, and I'll tell you a story. I would talk to older people because the fastest way to get smart is through someone else's experience. One of the stories in the book is called The Little Red Towel. And one day I was at Fenway Park where the Red Sox play, and there was this usher. He had to be 80 years old, and he was the most enthusiastic person I had ever seen. He loved his job. He addressed everybody by name, and if he didn't know your name, he made it up. And he would wipe off the seat and skip, and he just had a great time. And I introduced myself, and eventually one thing led to another, and he had these 2 season tickets that nobody ever used in aisle 18. And he let me sit there whenever I came to a game. And I worked across the street at a restaurant. And what I would do is I would go into the press gate. I'd hand them a free hamburger card. I'd go up to the seat. And from the 3rd to the 7th inning, sometimes the 8th inning, I would sit next to this 80-year-old guy. And I did more listening than talking. I asked him questions about his life. And we eventually were moved to California. And the winter that happened, I realized that he didn't have any relatives. And so for the holidays, we invited him over to our house, and my wife made a fabulous meal. And, what do you get an 80-year-old guy? You get him aftershave, you can smell in the bleachers. That's the kind of thing. But I also gave him a package, and he opened it, and it was a little red towel, which went with his uniform, and he could wipe off the seats to get a tip. So we moved to California, and every year for 8 or 9 years, we'd come back, and I'd stop in at the game. I'd say hi, we'd catch up. And then one day I came back, and he wasn't there. He wasn't in section 18. And his replacement told me the Red Sox had found him a sitting job under the right field stand. So I went over to see him, and we caught up, and then we had that kind of eye contact. I knew I was never going to see him again, and he knew he was never going to see me again. So I thanked him for all the wisdom that he shared with me, and he thanked me for the little red towel that he still had after 10 years. So I came back the following year, and he was ushering in the sky somewhere, and I know that little red towel was with him.
What a beautiful, beautiful anecdote there. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Wow, it's beautiful. All right, so I want to ask you this question. We're going to tap into your wisdom now. Okay. You ran your first marathon at 70 and published your first book at 72. First of all, congratulations. I am so serious. So talk to us. What has life taught you?
It's never too late.
Yeah.
The other thing that the marathon taught me, and by the way, it was 6 hours, 12 minutes, and 18 seconds because I wasn't running for time. I was running to finish.
Yes.
The other thing that it taught me is if we rely on others to challenge us, they're very rarely going to get it right. And they're very rarely going to challenge us enough for us to grow. I mean, stop and think about it. Who would walk up to a 70-year-old and say, I think you should run a marathon?
Right.
It isn't going to happen. That came from the inside, not the outside.
Right.
And I think that kind of sort of my whole life. I've been that from the inside. I keep learning. I keep growing. You know, one of my favorite words is next.
Next.
What's next?
Yes.
Okay, I've done this. What's next? You know, focusing on continuing, not arriving.
I like that.
Reinvention has no expiration date. One of the stories that I use that kind of combines this is, for a time I was a restaurant executive in Los Angeles, and there was a new regional vice president who showed up, and he wanted to tour some of the stores. So we went to a dozen stores, and on the way back, I stopped at a gas station, and I had my receipt folder, I had my credit card, I knew which pump to go, and I filled it up, and we headed back to the office, and he said, Ed, you know what you do best in your job? Get gas. You get gas better than anybody I've ever worked with. Well, I'm not sure you're going to last if that's what you do best. So the story is called Feedback is a Gift. It was a guy giving me a gift, but a lot of times we reject that gift of feedback. So I listened to him. We turned our weekly sessions from beatings or argumentative to coaching and training. And I tried, and I reported back, and I tried, and And 18 months later, he needed someone to take over the San Francisco region. And guess who he picked? The guy who could get gas. That's right. His feedback was a gift.
And that's a powerful lesson right there. Leaders, I really want you to take hold of that. Feedback is a gift. Don't reject it. Allow yourself to say, what is the feedback teaching me? What can I learn from this? What opportunities are arising from the feedback that I'm receiving? So, Ed, this has been like a masterclass on life, and I really love it. As we turn the corner on this conversation, I want to ask you this final question. Deposit into us one more time. If you could leave leaders with one lesson about leading at the speed of life, what would that lesson be?
Leadership is a daily choice. Small moments can have lasting impact. And stories teach faster than theory. I mean, stop and think about, I told you half a dozen stories, and you were right there. You know, you were at that Texaco station. You were watching me write on the cocktail napkin. And that's a great way to teach, to lead, is through stories.
I love it. Well, leaders, listen, you have your marching orders, lead through stories. Remember that life is a lifelong journey, right? And so, Ed, I know that there are listeners and viewers that want to find out more. As a matter of fact, they want to get this book, right? And hear more about anecdotes from your life. So what's the best way for our listeners and viewers to engage with you and your resources?
Well, my consulting website is ambroselandon.com. The book is available on Amazon. And it's available in paperback, audiobook, which I narrated myself because it was next. It's also available in Spanish and as an ebook.
Very nice.
It's not available in Italian yet. That may happen after this podcast.
Va bene. Very nice. Very nice. All right. Well, listen, Transformation Station, you know that we like to support our guests. So you see the link there on the screen. It's also in the description box, whether you're watching this live or you're watching this on the replay. I'm inviting you right now to go ahead and click on the link. I'm encouraging you to support Ed, not just because he wrote the book, but because this is a valuable resource for you and the leadership community. So click on that link, get the book. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to invite you to reach out to Ed. Let Ed know that you heard this particular episode. Share with him what has resonated with you, and be sure to ask him questions as well. Ed, it has been wonderful to host you, to have you here with us for Transformation Station. Thank you for sewing into our leadership community.
Thanks for having me. It was nice to be had.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, listen, today's conversation reminds us that leadership is not measured by age or title or position. It's measured by our willingness to keep growing, to keep learning, and to keep moving forward through every season of life. We want to thank Ed for sharing his wisdom, his experience, and for reminding us that our best contributions are still ahead of us. Your next chapter does not have to be your last chapter. And this encouragement can help you and those in your community to grow even further. So stay curious, stay teachable, stay resilient, and keep on leading at the speed of life. So until next time, be intentional, adaptable, and keep on moving forward.